If you're into Game Boy, there's a good chance you'll like my new Neo Geo Pocket Color series too. Every Thursday I'm reviewing a new Neo Geo game. Just join the PO3 Patreon or become a channel member here on YouTube. Klonoa has always been a bit of an odd series, never quite breaking into the mainstream, never quite dying either. Whenever it cropped up in the past, it was usually met with warmth from those who knew it, and blank stares from those who didn't. It did lay dormant for nigh on 2 decades, but surfaced again as recently as 2022, with remastered versions of the first 2 mainline games. The PlayStation original, Klonoa Daughter Phantomile, was a charming little platformer, with its own take on the 2.5D format, mixing sprite-based characters with polygonal environments in a way that made it feel just a little ahead of its time. Lunatia's Veil on the PS2 continued that tradition as well. However, between those 2 games came something a little different, the GBA's Empire of Dreams, the first of 3 Klonoa games the system would get. Rather than just trying to cram a watered-down version of the console games into a handheld-sized cartridge, Namco went in a bit of a different direction with this one. Instead of focusing on spectacle, sweeping environments, or cinematic flair, Empire of Dreams really leans hard into the puzzle aspect of platforming. Yeah, it's stripped back compared to its bigger brothers, with any storytelling done through text and still images, and no 3D environments to speak of, instead focusing on using its new minimalism to craft a compelling and actually really clever little adventure. The story is about as whimsical as you'd expect from a Klonoa title. The floppy-eared title character is summoned by one Emperor Gilius, an insomniac ruler, cursed never to dream, who, therefore, like any good overlord, forbids anyone to dream in his kingdom. Of course, Klonoa has dreamed, and he's in trouble because of it. Rather than punishment, though, Gilius orders you to hunt down the monsters that are plaguing the land. The plot doesn't intrude on the game too much, but it's enough to set the mood. A strange, colourful fairy tale with just a hint of sadness underneath, the sort of slightly melancholic, childlike innocence that the series is known for. The gameplay is where this really shines, not its story or its artistic direction. It's largely built around using this wind bullet technique, a short-range projectile that grabs enemies, blocks and so on, and lets you hold them over your head. You can then jump and propel yourself higher off whatever you're holding using a second jump, or throw them at other enemies. Jumping is the majority of what you'll be doing in this game, and so it's a good thing that the jump feels so nice. It has a real kind of floatiness to it, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It still feels snappy and controllable enough. Throwing stuff is really precise too. Nothing you need to do in this game is ever hampered by the controls. Each level is made up of individual screens that almost work as little puzzle boxes, and throughout each stage, your job is to try to collect 3 star fragments in order to open up the level exit door. There are also 30 gems across the varied sections to find. They are optional, although not particularly out of your way, so there's really no excuse not to get them. The little ones give you 1 gem, whereas the bigger ones are worth 5. You'll also be able to search for the rarer sun fragments. There's 1 in each stage somewhere, although these are also optional. As well as the double jumping stuff, there are other level features that get introduced as the game progresses. Wind chutes blow you upward to the top of wherever it's aimed at, which can cause you to either reach or miss your intended destination. You can block these when you need to using boxes, or even carry enemies up with you. Springboards allow you to reach much higher than regular jumps, and switches can activate or deactivate shutter doors. Elevating columns work in pairs. Stand on one and it'll sync, which raises the other one. Again, you can use boxes to interact with these as well as yourself. Plenty more things to find as well later on. Now, why Klonoa stands out over other GBA platformers of the time is that it's less focused on speed and reflexes, which weren't always your friend on the darker, original GBA screen, instead being a slower and more thoughtful experience, really. It rewards observation, planning and timing, and what you get is actually pretty satisfying as a result. Now, if you're expecting a big, sprawling platformer with lots of variety, this probably isn't the game for you. It's fair to say that the levels do get a bit repetitive after a while, following the same star-collecting formula as they do. The enemy roster is fairly limited, and while each one is introduced with a specific purpose, some inflate like balloons to carry you upwards, others function like timed explosives, for example, you will quickly see everything the game has to offer. It's not enough of a marathon to overstay its welcome as such, but even so, you might find the middle stretch starts to blur together somewhat. The boss fights are a nice change of pace though. They take the puzzle mechanics and do away with the lethargic pace of the main levels, instead injecting a little bit of urgency. They usually require you to use enemies in creative ways while dodging attacks. Clearly a really big Kirby influence is felt here. Visually, the game is bright and quite charming. It's simplified, of course it is. It does lack a bit of the 2.5D flair from its console counterparts, but still, it made the transition to the Game Boy Advance really well. Animations and sprite work are both impressive respective of the system, and the level designs are colourful enough and varied enough to keep things fresh. The soundtrack does a lot of heavy lifting to compensate the atmosphere, it's fair to say. It has a real whimsical, slightly dreamy score that really fits the world perfectly. It's playful without being grating, and helps to elevate the otherwise quite simple presentation. The little voice samples are abundantly used, which might annoy some people, but I don't think they are as irritating as they could have been. I mean, see Super Mario Advance for an example of what I mean by that. So yeah, safe-ish it might have been, but that's alright sometimes, I think. There's a lot to like about Klonoa Empire of Dreams. It's not going to tax your grey matter a great deal, nor will completing it take you very long, but sometimes we need something like that, I think. Gaming doesn't always have to be stressful, does it?